All right, good morning, afternoon, evening, like they say on some of these. All right, so we're going to start installment 2, paragraph 1. And we'll start with Paula since we missed her last week.
Okay, paragraph. The basics, volume 1, chapter 2, the basics. The ego doesn't ever see the full picture of anything. It sees parts and then fills in the blanks for the rest. Its opinions and harsh rhetoric about everything add to the mix, and you end up with a very distorted image, whether it is of a person or a situation.
Anna.
There has not been an alternative available until now. I showed one example of the alternative during my time on the earth. It was not accurately recorded or understood. No one understood that being Christ had anything to do with them, other than it being something to believe in so that your sins could be washed away and gain favor with God. I became a worshipped deity, not an equal contemporary. I showed a way, and now it's your turn. There will be some work involved. I can promise you that much. Changing your body's operating system while it actively fights you for doing so moment to moment has not been easy for the select few who have accomplished it in the modern age. It won't be easy for you either, but the rewards will far exceed the hardship. For any effort you invest in this process will be multiplied considerably, because what will really transpire will be your own soul rejoining the fold while still in form. This is where all of the extra help will come from.
This chapter will be called The Basics.
Mm-hmm.
Should I read 4 as well?
Yes.
All right. Love, the unconditional variety, is the only real thing in this world. It is true 100% of the time. It is eternal and timeless. It is complete concern for itself in the form of others. It enhances other bodies of love or souls who may be in difficult circumstances when their egos will not listen to them and carry out their own loveless agendas instead. Love sees the forms that manifest when there is little love that is powerful enough to counteract them. But respects this process, the very slow, painstakingly slow process. Pass.
What is not love is fear, and fear is not in itself real. Fear is simply a call for love. However devastating it may be, however destructive, however much suffering it causes. Fear calls for love and rarely receives it. What fear usually receives is fear. Fear on top of fear is a recipe for disaster. And this explains many things in the world, both the small and the large.
Okay, so Irene, thank you for joining us. We're on installment 2, and we just read 1 through 5 again. And before we continue, I just want to point out where it says it won't be easy for you either about overcoming the ego. Well, guess what? I have had a week of that proving itself. Woo. And so this is so good for me to be able to read this and be reminded of this, because it wasn't easy for Jesus either. It wasn't easy for anyone who's made it. In my other class, there's another person that was having some difficulty this week as well. And it all boils down to really just when we remember the truth that we are soul and not the ego, we can kind of put that ego in the back seat, you know? It's just being aware of it. But man, it can be really seemingly strong at times.
Can
Anyone-
we say we made it?
Excuse me?
Can we say that we made it or not?
Sometimes, not always.
It's an ongoing process.
We're on the way. We're on the way. Yeah.
We're on the way. Paula's got her hand up. Paula?
I've been receiving these installments, having read the materials that are coming through in this one book, you know, for the someone for the first time, someone who's never had any experience with the Course of Miracles, the Course of Love, and I'm reading it as a novice. And what I'm reading, like when he, at the end, I'm not, you know, because it's still so, like here I'm saying, like, you know, if I was reading this, just picked it up and, you know, for the first time and I'm into the second installment, my mind is already completely blown. You know, that, as I would say. But the one thing, and when I was reading it too, at the very end of the second paragraph, which is quite long, and it says quite a bit about God and being Christ and, you know, and there's some work involved, you know, like, it's very reassuring the way the message is coming. And then I loved at the very end where he, at that paragraph, for any effort you invest in this process will be multiplied considerably, because what will really transpire will be your own soul rejoining the fold while still in form. This is where all of the extra help will come from. And like I said to you, I'm reading it as if I was a novice. And that spoke to me. If I was starting out to realize there's a journey, there is a soul, you know, you're just starting to pick up little bits and pieces of where am I, or asking the question, who am I, where am I? And already he joins, he took the Course of Miracles and the Course of Love in that one last few lines and joined it. Because you don't read my experience, I don't ever remember hearing the word form in the Course of Miracles. It was always the body, or, you know, like you're not a body, or the lessons, I'm not a body. So I'm just, you know, I'm just saying, critiquing it. If I was critiquing this work, I would say that was very well put. And as a novice, it would like just make me relax, because there is a journey and there is a body, a form. So that's all I have to say.
This was the
That's
whole idea of this book, to reach everybody, those who have read the Course in Miracles and those who haven't. And I think it's well done.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, Jacques, exactly. For those that have never read either books, any of the books, or, you know, have read something, let's face it, I didn't, you know, I'm not gonna say let's face it, but, you know, my path started from something, a book, my friend said, try this book. And it was something, I forgot who, Michael Singer or somebody else years ago, The Seed of the Soul. But the journey starts, and then you led to the major works like Miracles, Course of Love, most people, Mastery, a lot of people. So I'm just saying, if I pick this up for the first time, this book, it reads very, very soft, not as harsh, not as, you know, like, not that Course of Miracles are harsh, that was more of an intellectual endeavor, where the Course of Love was more of a experiential endeavor. And I like how it's being melded together here. That's all my opinion of it.
All right, thank you.
I think
And
we
the
all know
word,
the
the
message.
word soul is going to be crucial throughout this book.
Yes, that's the other thing that we really didn't, that A Course in Miracles or A Course of Love, well, they spoke about the soul, but this is all soul. This is really bringing it home. And I listened to Chief Phil, somebody, I forget. Anyhow, and wonderful man. And of course, the American Indian philosophy is just fantastic. And he asked the announcer, he said, well, do I have just another minute? I want to say something else about the soul. And the guy said, of course. And he spent 2 or 3 minutes just really nailing it about how that soul belongs to all of us. And this is our unity, our oneness. And so it's showing up there now, which if you have the ears to hear it and you're in the right spots.
Yeah, I'd like to share some history about when the Course in Miracles, and it was told to me by somebody who was very much involved, Lee Flynn. He was very much involved with there was, it came out from the Foundation of Inner Peace, and there was Ken Wapnick and a whole crowd, Helen Schuckman. They took out at the beginning of her transcript anything about soul on the first edition. And then when Lee and the Society for Course in Miracles went to court, and they found, because they wanted to copyright it, meaning that they had complete control. There was a court fight, so now it was open to everybody. The first edition of the Society of, I forgot, Sims, Course in Miracles Society, put soul back in there. But Ken Wapnick fought them. They didn't want soul in that, and then they eventually added it back. So there was time. The soul was not mentioned in the Course in Miracles. The blue book, the book with the pearls, whatever you want to call it. So
Well,
I'm just giving you some history.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Bill. You know this history too.
Yeah, thank
I
you.
think one of the things is that soul can be interpreted in different ways. What Judy just told us about the soul being one soul for everybody is not how he's talking about it here.
Okay.
So it's very interesting that, you can really interpret it in different ways. And that may be why, to avoid confusion, they took it out to begin with.
Well, I don't know what it was, the thought behind it, but they chose not to, but it's true, it could have been very, like, you can't say it's everyone's soul, but here she does say that in here. It said it's not only your soul, but others' souls. It's the joining of souls. It says it right in that one paragraph.
It's also
All right,
known
In the multitude of the writings
Go ahead.
that Ken Wapnick had offered, there's one in particular, I don't recall which one it is, I've got plenty of them, but he speaks about he makes a statement that when they were doing the work on putting the book together, they felt that there was too much baggage associated with soul to include that in the writing to begin with. And from my perspective, I look back and I recognize that Ken Wapnick was getting into this for the first time. Do you remember what it was like for you the first time that you read the Course in Miracles, and how that compares to where we are today in terms of just recognizing what we've come to accept along the way? So that's been very insightful for me in that regard. I think it was in The Absence of Felicity, where he was writing Helen's autobiography. Thanks. I'm complete.
Yeah, I just wanted a little, but my opinion is that when I read that, I was glad how this is coming together very nicely, the blend of works. That's all.
Okay.
My opinion.
Anyone else before I go on?
This time, nobody's going to cut words out.
I didn't understand you, Chuck.
At least this time, nobody's going to cut words out of the book.
Yes.
The book is what it is, and you like it or you don't like it, that's it.
Judy.
Since we're talking about soul, I have a question that I'd like some clarity on it. Is there one soul, or are there individual souls joined?
if there's an oversoul, as I understand it, the oversoul, which would be God. And then we have the individuated selves, as we learned in Course of Love. And so, while we're each a soul, it is that soul, you can call it the higher self, the soul. I mean, there's so many different words and ways you can use it. The understanding, though, is that we're all part of the oneness. And whatever helps you understand that we are part of that oneness. I know Jacques likes to say a lot, well, we are God. Well, all of us collectively, yes. But when it's said by just a human being saying, I am God, it's just not quite, doesn't quite ring true for me as far as complete. That's but not true. It doesn't ring complete for me when we just say, I am God. We all are, it all is. There is nothing other than. And that's the old illusion. And that's why fear really isn't real, because you can't separate that out. You can't separate anything out. As soon as you try to separate something out, that's our whole problem, separation.
And the title of the book is not A Soul at the Driver's Seat or The Soul, it's Soul. And I think that's wanted this way, not A Soul or The Soul, it's Soul at the Driver's Seat.
Good point. Good point.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I would say this, I have never heard of any souls being in conflict with one another.
Yeah, souls don't fight.
When it comes to driving.
Yes. No, that other one isn't a soul, then it's just a bad driver. Okay.
Backseat driver.
Oh, I got something going on here. Okay, if no one else has anything, I will continue at number 6. Okay. The human experiment and experience is basically one of duality. Love from the soul is always seeking to be heard, but fear from the brain drowns it out and prevents it from expressing as often as it would like. When this happens, programming and conditioning typically triumph, and nothing too terribly devastating happens. But on occasion, horrific scenes of both cruelty and destruction on small and mass scales occur, which do nothing but exponentially increase fear. Paula.
Okay. Humans and souls have a very different take on things. Humans will say that so-and-so is a murderer. Souls will say that so-and-so is a soul who did everything within its power to stop the character, mind-body vehicle from committing a murder. Souls will say that the recipe for the murder was made long ago when the quasi-real puppet began to bottle up feelings and resentments, creating a ticking time bomb known as rage. As souls mature, they have a greater capacity to handle characters with needs such as this. That is so perfectly put. Wow.
Fear versus love is the first dilemma on the earth. Love is not against fear, but fear is against love for all intents and purposes. The fear factor here is disproportionate to the love factor here. The unconditional, no matter what love factor, sorry, read that odd. The fear factor here is disproportionate to the love factor here. The unconditional, no matter what love factor. Fear often disguises itself as love. Fear is nice and kind when it has ulterior motives. This is the best it can do. It does these things to paint a rosy picture of itself as a caring and loving entity. This couldn't be further from the truth, because the truth is that the ego is a con artist a liar in all ways.
You're muted, Bill.
Got that. I got that notation an instant before. Thank you for that. There are two selves. The outer one is the body, personality, and character. It is considered an illusion because it is temporary. It is fueled by something real, although it itself is not real. It has everyone fooled. Both those who are here now and everyone who has ever been here. This illusion of something real, an aspect of God as soul, who is pretending to be something completely contrary to its own nature, is an illusion. An illusion virtually no one can find their way out of while they are here. It's that good of an illusion. It's so convincing that even the strongest souls have a great deal of trouble dealing with it. And I just want to say something here. In this next paragraph, we're going to find something that, for me, was new. Can't wait to go over it with you guys. Thanks.
Irene, take it away.
Who created the illusion? The ego combined with all other egos created the illusion. Who created the ego? The collective of God did. Why? This is the only way that God can grow more of itself. The ego provides fear, which is the resistance that is needed for God to grow. What is God? God is unconditional love, care, and the consideration for itself and others. What is an ego? An ego is everything that God is not.
Okay, perhaps we should pause there then, since that's such a new thought for Bill. What did you come up with after that, Bill? Muted again.
The statement, where is it? Who created the ego? The collective God did. Why? This is the only way that God can grow more of itself. Here's the role of the ego, to provide fear, which is the resistance that is needed for God to grow. What is God? Well, God is unconditional love, care, and on and on. But we now recognize, I am hearing here at this point, this message. The collective God created the ego, created the ego thought system as a means for us to go through whatever we need to awaken from our dream. We've got this tool in us, our ego, that has put together the illusions or the systems or the beliefs or the programming, if you will, that has brought us to where we are today, absent this deeper awareness of who we are, and this deeper awareness of a way of finding our non-duality, our oneness in God. So it's saying God had a role for the ego for us, and it has truly served us in that it brought me here to where I am today. I'm certain of that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
If you
think
wanna say something, Jack, if you want to say something, put your hand up first so people know you want to talk, because otherwise we don't know.
And everyone should mute because we hear everybody's.
I already, it's usually Irene that has some kind of backup noise. I already muted her, which is, she knows I do that because I don't know what it is, but anyhow, we're pretty quiet
I
otherwise.
think what's new is really appreciating that resistance is necessary.
Mhm.
It's something to do with energy. I mean, resistance is something to do with magnetism, or I mean, I don't know the technical thing, but resistance in a magnet, probably some people know what part it plays. It's an essential part of movement, that without resistance, you don't get movement. Or
Training.
resistance is something to do with friction that happens when you get movement. I don't know the technical, but anyway, I know that what he's saying is resistance is essential, which is beautiful.
Mhm.
Let me offer something that might support that question, Anna. How could God create anything but God? Why would God create anything but God?
To know itself.
And so I'm starting with that statement to then go and point out that resistance is coming from the power that we have. Each one of us, the individual power that we have to come up with ideas, to come up with making movements, to make something occur. This is our power as God, and it's the way that we have used it that has brought about this resistance, that enables us to take a look at what I have done with my power to think that I was going to make everybody happy while I was putting them all in hell, all right? Or dwelling in fear throughout all this. To me, this is the message of this awakening, and it's a statement of the power that we have as God created us. That's my take on it. Thank you.
Many will be surprised to learn that God grows. God is not fixed, he grows through us.
Mhm.
That's right. We're the
Yeah, we
continual
are
process of
creating.
extension, of continuing
Yeah,
to
we're
extend.
creating as God create. We create in our godness. Let me put it that, it's the best word I could use. We
Yeah.
constantly create. So the moment, and God is in everything, the ego and everything. And we are, it's like, as we resist or we go through our whatever, we are adding and doing. So it's all part of creation. And we are part of that creation, the movement, the flow.
And this time when it was read, I was also thinking like the ego is like soil. And the thing that is we think of soil as dirt and yucky, but without it, the plant can't grow, And so it just, and also weight resistance, because I have been using weights because I don't like this stuff under your arm, my arm. And
Keep
anyway,
working it, Judy, keep working it.
yeah, it's getting better actually at work. And anyhow, so that was my take. Thank you.
Yeah, there is a way that you can see resistance, and certainly in psychoanalysis, resistance is seen as a negative. And generally, those values have been taken up by society generally, that resistance is something wrong, something negative. I think he's telling us that it's an essential part of the growth factor, and that, yeah, we need it.
Would that say that fear is an essential part of our growth?
Yes.
When we resist, we're being aware of our resistance. If we don't resist, we're not aware. So we have to resist to realize where our resistance are.
I don't think there's nothing irrelevant here. Every piece of it is all essential. There's nothing that you can say, oh, well, we could do without that, or we could do that. No, I'm sure it's all been planned perfectly.
I'm very clear that whenever I'm experiencing resistance, I am not experiencing love.
And what's the opposite of love? Fear.
Yeah.
You're not aware that you're experiencing love at that point, but actually you are, because you can't not be experiencing love.
Whether or not I'm aware of it. When I'm in resistance, I'm not aware of it.
Exactly.
But isn't that what we're doing all this work for? As far as this is my life anyway. When I find out that, oops, okay, I've had enough of that resistance. And then it makes our choice for peace and love stronger as well. You know, it makes that choice come faster, that, you know, we realize we don't need to go through that because that resistance has gotten us this far. Something else might come up to take us further, you know, usually does. And it, like the one paragraph where it says, you know, people, other people that have actually made it, had a rough go of it. And some of the stuff I read about souls is the fact that those that have come back and seem to have the hardest life are the ones that progress the furthest. They chose that so that they knew that resistance would bring them further. You're right. There's nothing right or wrong. It just is. Yeah.
Can we-
Exactly.
Can we
Look-
recognize the perfection of all of this? Not that we can figure it out, not that we can think about it intellectually, but can we simply accept the perfection of all that is?
Yes.
The
Except
plan
That's
is
the word,
perfect.
Bill, accept. That's the
Unity,
word.
unity's divine order.
It's a beautifully challenge, isn't it? To really, really accept that. It is, yeah.
Well, can you accept the fact that you're only love and that you're lovable and loving?
I tell myself that all the time. I am loved, lovable, and loving.
Mm-hmm.
I remind myself, remind the truth.
Mine is I am light, I am love, I am truth, I am. I am light, I am love, I am truth, I am. I am light, I am love, I am truth, I am. I am, I am, I am. I'm not Popeye, but I am. Yeah, right. Strength exercises.
That reminder is certainly becoming easier, particularly when we're involved in groups such as this.
Mhm.
Oh,
That's-
hallelujah.
Okay, let's see. I believe Judy's reading now. Or did I? Yeah, Irene read. So you're on 11, Judy?
You are not the thing that looks back at you in the mirror. This has been your true self's friendly sparring partner at best, and its arch enemy at worst. You are an invisible, formless quality that took form many years ago. Before that birth, you died out of another lifetime in form that you were born into and lived. You may have been a janitor who could barely read or sign his name or her name, or you may have been a soldier in a war or the wife of one who had to bury her husband. In other words, you've been around many, many times, and each time you, the true you, grew a little more. Maybe the growth was infinitesimally small during a particular lifetime, or maybe the growth was gargantuan. The point is that every time you grew, you got better at handling the puppet and controlling its impulses, preventing potential disaster at every turn. It has very much been like learning to ride a skateboard. After years of bloody wounds, you have turned into Tony Hawk and can perform masterful moves even at an advanced age.
How does the soul grow? Or in a broader perspective, how does God grow? Contrary to proper speculation, God is not a static entity. It is in and around everything you know about and everything you do not know about. The God part of you is your soul, and it grows every time you go against the grain of your ego's programming and choose love, pure, unadulterated, unconditional love.
The part of you that is the soul is a part of God. So soul is God's presence within.
Mhm. Yes. Okay, Paula?
You're muted, Paula.
What did Jacques read? Because mine's next paragraph is love can't be separated out.
Yeah, that's
I
it.
can't read
That's
because I
it,
don't have
isn't it?
other, I only have this laptop. That's it.
Yeah, 13.
Mine doesn't have numbers either.
Mm.
Love cannot be separated out. Because another soul is so encased and intertwined with the body, love goes to both the character who acted against the soul and the poor soul who wasn't listening to. It will read that. So who wasn't listened to, excuse me. They both received it when I'm losing my mind here. The print is bothering me. They will both receive it when they are open and willing to do so. Gifts of love are never wasted. They will wait until the Christmas tree, under the Christmas tree indefinitely. Eventually, it is the goal that the soul and the body merge in a unified manner and become a singular entity of the eternal, expressing full time through a temporary form. Until that point, creating more of God, creating more love is messy. The ego's resistance will guarantee it. I had to stop because that line eventually, it is the goal that the soul and the body merge in a unified manner, become a single entity of the eternal, expressing time to a temporary form. So as we walk in this illusion, am I reading that correctly?
Yeah, it's beautiful. What a wonderful picture he's giving us. It's just wonderful.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I guess that's the point of what they call when we become enlightened, or is that the word? When the soul becomes enlightened, merges with the body. Until that point, creating more of God, creating more love is messy. I like that one. The ego's resistance will guarantee it. Yeah. Bill, your hand is up.
Yeah, as you read that, what comes to me immediately is the elevated true self of form.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that's what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Which is, it's more than being enlightened or different from being enlightened. We are enlightened in our
Realize it.
we are
Awakening to the
accomplished.
fact.
We are the
We are
accomplished. Yeah.
the accomplished. That's the word. Yeah.
And I
But
would,
when we bring that into physical form, that is actually something new that is being introduced into the world, which has never happened before. This is us creating something different.
Bill?
This moment of fusion, to me, represents what happens when Jesus was baptized. That was the end of his human life and the beginning of his divine life.
Does that mean that we all need to be baptized?
in some form, perhaps. What this brings me back to is in A Course in Miracles, where A Course in Miracles, I believe I read it first in the preface, and then I think it's probably in lesson 136, actually I recall it in the preface, that it says that our body becomes a useful tool for us so long as we want to continue to use it, only to be gently laid aside when we're no longer needing of it or no longer wanting it.
Yeah, it's our choice.
Do you recall that from the Course in Miracles?
Yeah.
And that's when you become the elevated self-reformed, the accomplished. Right. But he doesn't, that was kind of, it was said in the course, but what I think the Course of Love made it more easier to accept and understand, to be honest.
Yes, yeah. So that to me is saying that we reach that point of that elevated state where we continue to exist in a form because we choose it. And we are able to bring that gift, whatever gift we are bringing, to others in terms of awakening and serving and loving and extending love to others. Thanks. I'm complete.
All right.
Again, as a novice, if I was to read that last line and then it says, creating more of God, creating more love is messy. Personally, I would say, like, why? if I love God, everything should be perfect. You know, I'm just being so, my humanness, you know, as a novice, someone picking up this and never having read anything. Messy? What messy? I love God. Anyway.
I think it takes the pressure off of being perfect. I mean, what is
Mhm.
perfect anyway? What's perfect for one person isn't perfect for the next. It's perfect, like Christina likes to say, it's perfectly imperfect. And that's just it. If we go with that, I have a crazy example and I will give it. So today, a hand towel fell in the tub and it got wet from the shower water that was in there. And I went, you know, it just irritated me. And then I had a dehumidifier on that I had turned off. And it always seems that even though I empty the tank and I make sure the bottom of the thing is dry, whenever I move it, it drips water. Well, today I used that wet towel to dry the bottom of that. And when I did that, I tipped it forward and then more water came out. And I'm sitting there. So I put the towel down there and I tipped it forward. There's a lot of water that still came out. And I went, oh, that's where that water's been dripping from. I went, well, thank you. Here I was upset about that towel. It just saved me. It solved the problem I've had for months. And I just saw the perfection in that, you know. I know, crazy example, but what was upsetting became perfect. It was just one of those life lessons that, you know, and I find myself saying thank you to those little things that resolve themselves a lot. And I'm always grateful to be able to say thank you. It keeps it coming. Yeah, Bill?
Before I heard of any of this material, I'm sorry, Paula, go ahead.
Just, you know, commenting on Judy's experience, because I know I thank, oh, like the slightest little thing I say, oh, thank you, God. It's just like an automatic, oh, thank you, soul. You know, it's like, oh, good. Anyway.
Yeah. Thank you. Before I was introduced to any of this material, I was with a man who made the statement, perfection is a limitation. And this is just furthered within A Course of Love, where they point out that what we have as an idea of perfection is but an illusion. And where's that illusion coming from? But our past pictures, our past ideals of what we think it is. It's but a dream. And I'll accept being perfectly imperfect and leave it at that. Thank you.
Let's read on. I believe Anna, huh?
15, is it?
Oh, the ego, yeah, 14.
14. If there was a singular human ego on the earth, it would be easier for it to find its way out of the fog of human thinking. With billions of egos over thousands of years, the energy of all those brains has created their own stratosphere, and thinking any other way is next to impossible. Egos can be nice, but something usually has to be in it for them. Egos can also take the opposite extreme and be absolutely vicious. No one is safe around those with bitterness in their hearts. Most egos fluctuate somewhere in the middle, where it is safer. Self-preservation is first and foremost so protecting itself from the myriad of dangers out there. Sorry, didn't get that. Self-preservation is first and foremost. So protecting itself from the myriad of dangers out there is high on the list of priorities.
Okay, Bill, I'm going to read one more paragraph and then we're going to pause for the day, okay? Unmute, hon.
So good about being on mute. Anyway, in the illusion of being a human versus being a soul aspect of God, the ego feels a very real sense of danger due to the threat posed by others. The ego feels alone and separate from all other egos, except for those connected through familiar or tribal commonalities. Having some common purpose is key to these special alliances. Having common enemies is another.
Mm. Yeah, those billions of brains over thousands of years. I mean, this is why we have to give ourselves a break. I mean, we're really trying to undo all of that. And obviously it's not done in a single lifetime because we keep coming back, you know? So.
Well, we don't have to undo nothing. We just have to live our life the best we can, and we don't have to straighten out the world.
You are the world.
Or perhaps look at those struggles and find the means to accept them and accept the underlying truth beneath that of our true self.
Accept it all. Mhm.